Money doesn't just buy comfort. It buys agreement. It buys laughter at the right moments. It buys silence when the wrong truths surface. And the longer someone lives inside that paid silence, the more dangerous a plain sentence becomes. Preston Kincaid had built his name on sentences that move markets, earnings calls, acquisition announcements, the kind of confident optimism that turned doubt into applause. He was a headline billionaire, traveling without schedules, collecting cities the way other people collected receipts. A two-lane highway and a detour sign dropped him into a small-town diner that smelled like coffee and buttered toast. Vinyl booths. A bell above the door. The kind of place that didn't know his face and didn't care. He slid into a corner seat, sunglasses still on, and watched the room the way he watched balance sheets, looking for softness. At the counter, a waitress refilled a man's cup while he stared at a torn envelope of bills. His hands shook when he tried to fold it back. He said something about rent. Something about the truck needing repairs. The words came out like apologies. The waitress didn't soothe him. She didn't pity him. She just spoke with the calm of someone who had done math in the dark. Pay the roof first, she said. Then the work. Then the interest. Anything else is noise. Don't let panic pick your order. The man blinked as if nobody had ever arranged his chaos into a sequence before. He nodded slowly, like the air had finally become breathable. Preston's mouth curved. Practical. Cute. When she turned, he leaned back and raised his voice just enough to be heard. All right, he said, smooth as polished stone. Give me financial advice. I've got, let's say, a little money problem. A few heads tilted. A couple of men smirked. The joke had landed exactly where he wanted it, on her. She set the pot down gently, wiped her hands once on her apron, and looked at him without flinching. Stop trying to multiply money you don't need, she said, and start protecting what you can't replace. The diner quieted. Not dramatically, just attentively, because the line didn't sound like a waitress improvising. It sounded like a verdict. Preston took off his sunglasses. Protect, he repeated, tasting the word. From what? From leverage you can't unwind, she said, already moving, already working, and from risk you've convinced yourself is sophistication. That stung. Not because it was insulting, because it was specific. He stood and followed her to the service station by the coffee machine, as if proximity could turn her sentence into something he controlled. You talk like someone who's seen real portfolios, he said. Where'd you learn that? She kept her hands busy, cups, napkins, motions practiced to the second. State University, she said. Economics. I left. For what? My mother's dialysis, she answered flat. My sister's tuition. The kind of obligations that don't accept potential as payment. Preston's jaw tightened, the first honest expression he'd worn all day. He tried again, a sharper challenge. What leverage am I not unwinding? She finally turned fully toward him. Her eyes were tired, but not uncertain. You're buying Meridian freight, she said. His face stayed composed, but the air around him changed. Meridian freight was the deal of the quarter. Quietly negotiated. Not public yet. That's confidential, he said. She didn't react to the threat beneath his tone. Confidential doesn't mean invisible. Your firm filed the Bond Roadshow deck through a syndicate portal that mirrors metadata. Someone in town works at the print shop that did the packets. People notice logos when they're paid by the hour to stare at them. Preston didn't speak. She continued, precise, restrained. Your model assumes refinancing at rates that don't exist anymore. Meridian's debt isn't just cheap carry. It's a wall in 18 months. And their fuel hedges roll off right before their union contract resets. If diesel spikes while payroll jumps, your covenant cushion turns into a trap. He heard the words the way he heard a siren from far away, first as a sound, then as consequence. My team stress-tested, he started. They stress-tested history, she cut in. Not the part where the world changes in a quarter. Silence stretched between them. It wasn't hostile. It was surgical. Preston went back to his table, but he didn't eat. He stared at the laminated menu like it was a spreadsheet that had just betrayed him. That night, in a hotel room built for people like him, he called his chief analyst and asked for the underlying assumptions. No summaries, no slides, no comfort. Raw inputs, hedging schedules, debt maturities, covenant language. At 2:13 a.m., the number started to say what the waitress had said in 10 seconds. At 2:41 a.m., he saw it, a refinancing cliff hidden behind optimistic averages and polite phrasing. At 3:05 a.m., he ordered the deal paused. By morning, his board was furious. His advisors were confused. The bankers were offended. Preston let them talk until their certainty ran out. Then he read the schedule aloud. Dates, rates, triggers. No drama, just arithmetic. The room went still, the same way the diner had. 2 weeks later, a competitor announced a similar freight acquisition and watched its stock crater on a credit downgrade. Newspapers called it an unforeseeable shift. Preston stared at the headline and felt a rare, unsettling gratitude toward a place with vinyl booths. He drove back to the diner without entourage, without sunglasses, without the armor of being recognized. The bell above the door rang. The waitress looked up and paused, measuring his face. He walked to the counter and set an envelope down, careful and square. I was wrong, he said. Not about the joke. About the assumption behind it. Her expression didn't soften. It steadied. He slid the envelope closer. Inside was a contract, simple and clean. It's funding, he said. Your own firm. Your name on the door. You don't answer to anyone who confuses confidence with intelligence. She didn't reach for it right away. She looked at him the way she'd looked at him the first time, like a person, not a category. You're not doing this to feel better, she said. Not a question. A test. Preston exhaled. I'm doing it because your sentence was expensive, he said quietly. And you gave it away in a diner. She picked up the envelope, finally. Not like a prize. Like a responsibility. Outside, the highway kept pulling people forward, toward the next illusion, the next status symbol, the next room where truth was negotiated. Inside, power had shifted without a raised voice. Because wisdom doesn't announce itself with a title. It just speaks once, plain, accurate, and waits for the world to catch up. Power is a strange currency. It can buy a private jet, a front-page apology, a room full of yes men, yet it can't purchase one honest sentence from someone who doesn't need you. Damian Cross understood optics the way traders understand volume. He was a billionaire who live-streamed relatable moments the same way he closed deals, with a smile calibrated for maximum return. A camera rig sat on his dashboard, chat scrolling like a stock ticker. He was on a staged road trip, gas stations, small towns, diner food, proof he was still one of us. His assistant had mapped every stop. The algorithm loved authenticity. The diner was exactly what the internet imagined. Neon sign, clinking plates, a bell above the door. People looked up, recognized him, and adjusted their faces into their best versions of themselves. Damian walked in like he owned the air, phone held high, grinning at his own reflection. All right, he announced to the stream, voice warm and performative, we're supporting local. Tip your servers. Be kind. You know the drill. At the counter stood a waitress with tired eyes and efficient hands. She moved with the economy of someone who had learned not to waste effort. Her name tag read Lena. Damian slid onto a stool and angled the camera to include her. He loved the contrast, billionaire and waitress, diamond watch and apron. The chat exploded with emojis and predictions. He ordered coffee, then leaned in with a playful smirk that invited everyone to laugh with him, at her. Lena, he said, I'm thinking about investing my next billion. What should I do? A couple of customers chuckled. Someone behind him whispered his net worth, like a prayer. Lena didn't laugh. She didn't posture. She poured his coffee and looked him straight in the face, as if the camera didn't exist. Invest in something, she said, that will still matter when you're gone. It landed like a glass set down too hard. The diner went quiet. The chat didn't. Messages flooded the screen. Caps, question marks, sudden reverence. Damian's grin froze, not because he'd been insulted, but because she'd refused the game. He tried to reclaim control. That's poetic, he said, a light tone covering a sharp edge. I meant a real investment. That was real, Lena replied. You're asking about money. I'm answering about value. Her voice stayed calm, but it carried weight. The kind that comes from paying bills with time instead of slogans. Damian's eyes flicked to the chat. The audience had turned. They weren't laughing with him anymore. They were waiting for him to be smaller. Lena wiped the counter once, then spoke like someone delivering a statement she'd rehearsed privately for years. My dad worked double shifts. Overtime. Holidays. He kept saying he'd live later when things calmed down. She paused, not for drama, because grief still costs breath. He died 2 months after he finally paid off the house. We buried him with hands that never learned how to rest. Damien's throat tightened. Not sympathy. Recognition. Lena continued, eyes steady. Wealth without time is debt. Wealth without relationships is an empty building. You can stack money like bricks and still have nowhere to go. Damien's phone trembled slightly in his hand. The camera caught it. The chat caught that too. Damien Cross, the man who bought companies like chess pieces, stood there exposed by a waitress in a diner because she'd said what his world avoided, that there are numbers you can't rebalance. He swallowed. You don't know anything about my life, he said, but the defense sounded thin. Lena didn't press. She didn't need to. Your kids aren't in your photos, she said quietly. That tells me enough. The words weren't cruel. They were accurate. And accuracy is brutal when you've been protected from it. The clip went viral before Damien reached the parking lot. Commentators called it humility. Critics called it staged. The public, strangers with no stake in his stock, called it truth. His brand team begged him to respond, to spin, to turn it back into content. For the first time in years, Damien didn't know what to say. He went silent online. In board meetings, he stopped talking first. He listened. He reviewed hours like he reviewed expenses. He cut the ritual of midnight emails. He pushed a company-wide shift, reasonable hours, real weekends, policies that treated people like they had lives worth returning to. He launched a foundation, not with his name stamped in gold, but with community directors who could veto him. He didn't announce it with fireworks. He just funded what lasted, scholarships, clinics, after-school programs that outlived headlines. Then he did the one thing no PR strategy could guarantee. He called his children, not with a speech, with an apology that didn't ask for forgiveness as payment. Weeks later, Damien drove back to the diner alone. No live stream, no entourage. Just a man walking into fluorescent light with his hands empty. Lena looked up from a ticket pad. Her expression didn't change. He took a seat at the counter. You cost me a lot, he said. Lena arched an eyebrow. Good. Damien let out a breath that sounded like surrender. Thank you, he said, for saying it while everyone else was paid to stay polite. Lena nodded once, as if accepting a transaction finally made honest. Outside, the road kept stretching toward the next performance, the next polished lie. Inside, a different kind of investment had already begun, one that didn't compound on paper, but in the only places that mattered when the cameras turned off. Because the richest people aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who still have someone to come home to. Information is the only asset that grows more valuable the longer you ignore it. In rooms where money is loud, truth survives by speaking softly, often from the one person everyone has decided doesn't matter. Graham Vale treated people like a live market. He'd made his billions by spotting patterns, fear, greed, pride, and he'd turned that skill into a hobby that amused him more than yachts ever could. His latest entertainment was simple. He'd walk into ordinary places with an ordinary smile, offer cash prizes for smart answers, and watch strangers scramble to impress him. A portable throne built out of attention. That night, he chose a diner off the interstate. Stainless steel counter. Old jukebox. Tire neon buzzing in the window. He arrived with 2 assistants and a folded stack of crisp bills, like a magician preparing a trick. Quick game, Graham announced, voice carrying. Best answer wins 10 grand. People straightened. Forks paused midair. Eyes shifted toward the money, like metal toward a magnet. A waitress moved through them with practiced speed, balancing plates, absorbing the room without being absorbed by it. Her name tag read MAYA. She didn't look at the bills. She looked at the faces. Graham watched her the way he watched a chart that refused to behave. He waved her over with the casual authority of someone used to being obeyed. All right, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. How do I double my fortune? A few people laughed, eager to be included in the billionaire's joke. Someone muttered an answer about crypto. Another suggested real estate. The air filled with noise. Maya didn't hesitate. Fire the advisors who tell you what you want to hear. The sound in the diner cut off clean, like a circuit snapped. Graham's smile held for half a second, then thinned. "That's your winning line?" he asked. Polite. Sharp underneath. "It's the only honest one," Maya said, setting down a plate. "If your advisors are always confident, they're selling you comfort. Comfort is expensive." Graham leaned back, studying her. "So what's the uncomfortable truth, Maya?" She glanced at his cufflinks, then his phone screen, where a news alert flashed earlier, his face beside a headline about his recent acquisition. "You bought Northbridge Solar," she said. The room stirred. That deal had been everywhere for 24 hours. Graham's new trophy. He nodded, indulging her. "I did. And you paid for a story," Maya replied, "not a balance sheet." Graham's assistants shifted. One step closer, protective. Maya kept going, measured and exact. Northbridge's cash flow looks stable because their power purchase agreements are front-loaded. After year 3, the escalators flatten. Meanwhile, their equipment warranties expire right as replacement costs spike. You're assuming panels degrade at one rate while their filings show another. It's in the footnotes, not the headlines. Graham's eyes narrowed. The words weren't diner wisdom. They were analyst language, clean, technical, unromantic. She didn't pull out notes. She didn't ask for time. She spoke from memory, like someone who'd lived inside spreadsheets until they felt like weather. "And right now," she added, "the market's unstable in a way your press release can't fix. Liquidity's thinning. Volatility's being sold too cheaply. When that snaps back, everyone who's hiding behind leverage is going to look for a scapegoat." Graham's jaw tightened. "You sound like you've sat on a trading floor." Maya's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened, just slightly. "I have," she said. The diner felt suddenly smaller. Even the neon hum seemed to lower. Graham tried to regain the game. "All right," he said softly. "If you're so sure, tell me what I missed." Maya held his stare. "Your firm partnered with Helix Execution to place the hedges," she said. "They're the problem." One assistant opened his mouth. Graham lifted a hand, stopping him. Maya continued, voice controlled. "Helix routes orders through venues that make pricing look clean while skimming around the edges. If regulators trace it, they won't lead with Helix. They'll lead with you. The headline won't say, 'complex market structure.' It'll say, 'Graham Vale's firm manipulated trading.'" A chill ran through the room, because this wasn't a lecture. It was a threat with dates and names. Graham's confidence didn't break. It recalibrated. "How do you know Helix?" he asked. Maya's fingers tightened around the coffee pot handle, then relaxed. "I used to work at Harrow and Klein," she said. "I built strategies that relied on them. Then I found the pattern I wasn't supposed to find." The words carried weight without drama. "I reported it," she added. "They called it misunderstanding. Then they asked me to sign an agreement that would keep me quiet. I quit instead." Graham stared at her, calculating. Prestigious hedge fund. Whistleblower. A woman in an apron who knew the plumbing of his empire. His phone buzzed. A message from legal. Helix due diligence clear. Another from PR. Great traction on Northbridge. For first time, those messages sounded like lullabies. Graham stood. Slowly. The movement alone pulled every eye in the diner. "Name your evidence," he said. Maya reached into her apron pocket and slid a small folded paper across the counter. Nothing flashy. Just a list of trade IDs, settlement dates, and a compliance contact who no longer worked there. "Start with those," she said. "If I'm wrong, you lose nothing but pride. If I'm right, you lose everything you can't buy back." Graham's assistants wanted to end it right there. To drag him back into the safety of tinted windows and controlled narratives. But Graham had built his life on one rule: ignore the obvious, and you deserve what happens next. He took the paper, looked at it, then looked at her. He didn't smile. "Come with me," he said. Maya didn't move. "I'm not asking for a job," she replied. "I'm not offering one," Graham said, voice low. "I'm offering a chance to stop a scandal before it becomes a funeral." The next hours moved fast. Calls, verifications, sudden quiet from people who were usually loud. Graham's compliance team traced the trade IDs. Patterns emerged. routing anomalies. Tiny advantages stacked into something criminal-looking under a regulator's light. By dawn, Graham had severed the partnership with Helix and froze the Northbridge hedging program. He made the calls nobody likes to make, publicly, cleanly, before anyone forced his hand. A scandal that could have swallowed his firm collapsed into a controlled rupture. Painful. Survivable. 2 days later, Graham returned to the diner alone. Maya was wiping down the same counter, the world pretending nothing had happened. He set a contract in front of her. "Chief Strategy Officer," he said. "Full authority." Maya didn't touch it. "Authority is rented," she said. "Equity is owned." Graham's eyes flicked up, surprised, then impressed, then wary. "I don't work to decorate someone else's empire," Maya continued. "If you want my mind in your building, my name goes on the deed." The diner was quiet again. Not from spectacle, from respect. Graham leaned in, voice almost amused. "You negotiate like a shark." Maya met his gaze. "You underestimated me like an amateur." He sat back, and for the first time that night, laughed, not at her but at himself. He signed, because underestimation is the cleanest mistake in the world. It feels like confidence right up until the moment it costs you everything.